closed when it takes you over. Max found some shredded long johns, but the name tag was missing. They could be anybody's. Nobody. Nobody trusts anybody now. We're all very tired. Nothing else I can do but just wait. This is Dr. Durant, also known as Rich Hurley, helicopter pilot, U.S. Outpost number 31. With me is Lou Melagrana. Also with us, as the last survivor of Outpost 31, is someone who won't take any of your voodoo bullshit, Max Overnighter.
Hey guys, how's it going? Rich, Lou, it's been a while. Well,
Yeah,
today
what's going
we're
on, Max?
not much. Let's see, what do we get together today? Talk about John Carpenter's The Thing, thus the intro, and we're going to talk about it in the vein of how it was in StarLog magazine number 58 from May of 1982. And this article focused mostly on screenwriter Bill Lancaster and his contribution to the movie. And a couple things just wanted to bring up, some basics on the movie The Thing, both the 1951 version and this one, kind of based on the 1938 John W. Campbell's book, Who Goes There. Bill Lancaster, screenwriter, was coming to this one right off of the Bad News Bears. And as with a lot of these other movies that we talk about, by the time they come out, they've been kicked around from studio to studio, and different people talking about it. So this one been kicked around a little bit from 1977. And when they first approached Mr. Lancaster to do this, he hadn't read the book and hadn't, they brought him in and he screened the movie, the original, the one from 51, and he didn't want to remake it. So he thought it was a great movie the way it was. And then by 1979, when John Carpenter was involved, he came in and they kind of knocked around some ideas that they wanted to not necessarily remake the original 1951 movie, and they wanted to stick maybe a little bit closer to the book and do some things just a little bit different. And this article talks about how Lancaster and Carpenter seem to get along really well, and that despite the fact that he had, Lancaster had not been known for doing horror genre, but he was a big fan. Little known fact: this Bill Lancaster we're talking to was the son of actor Burt Lancaster. We might know that guy's name from stuff, and of course, the movie, the effects, and yeah, he's a little famous. You might have seen his face somewhere.
Burt Lancaster laugh.
Yes. The fact that Rich knows how cracks me up.
And something else I think that Rich should probably identify with really good, and I think you probably saw it in the article that Bill Lancaster was a big fan of the old, black and white, cheesy, campy horror movies, and he mentioned specifically the Vincent Price movies. The Vincent Price.
I know. I like that. He mentioned along with the. Good evening, it's Vincent Price. Why wasn't I in The Thing?
It's a thing.
Max, did you also bring up the fact that he had curly blonde hair? Did you talk one of another?
I thought that I would lead off with the Vincent Price thing to give him some propers first, and he did talk about the Creature of the Black Lagoon and some of those other drive-in and
I have
horror
to say,
classics.
I was so glad we were given this article. The Thing is one of John Carpenter is one of my favorite directors, and The Thing is one of my favorite of his films. And I love reading these old articles, like hearing about the process that went into it, like you said, Max, like how long it was in development in Hollywood back in the day. And that was a big thing. Like remakes are nothing new. They've always been trying to remake films. Even back in the 70s and 80s, they were trying to remake a lot of these old 50s and 60s and 40s horror movies down the line. And I just find it amazing that, I didn't know that the guy that wrote this was actually Burt Lancaster's son. And what a fan of genre films he was, along with John Carpenter. John Carpenter was a huge Howard Hawks fan. Howard Hawks Christian Nyby directed the original thing, but a lot of people say that it was Howard Hawks that sort of ghost directed it. Howard Hawks produced it because it has all the typical Howard Hawks tropes in there. And
Like what? Give us some examples.
Well, just the tough, quick talking guys, and it's a real man's man movie, and Howard Hawks was big on having people's
sure.
Yeah,
because they did talk about kind of that push towards maybe the Humphrey Bogart kind of a kind of a character.
Howard Hawks directed like those bogey films, and he directed a lot of the old westerns. Like I think I always get the two of them confused, but I think it's Rio Bravo. Is that the
Macho
one with
Man? Is that what you're trying to say, Rich? Macho Man.
John Wayne and Dean Martin and Ricky Nelson's kid there, or Ozzie Nelson's kid, Ricky Nelson. That's one of John Carpenter's favorite westerns, and it's kind of it's like a siege picture. It takes place in one location. All the bad guys are going to come into town, and that's what the thing is. All these guys are in one location. They're trapped in an Antarctic ice station, and they're trying to figure out. They don't trust each other. There's a lot of paranoia in there, which differs from the original film. And the other thing that they took out of it that I think Burt Lancaster's mentions in the article is he's like his line in there is there's no broads in this movie. It's a man's film.
Right.
That's one of the things I really.
Be a man. There's no broads in the film. Be a man.
Right. That's right. So what happened between 1951 and 1982 is that men learned how to make their own coffee. I think that's what it boiled down to. Because if you watch any of those old movies, like the thing from the original Thing and some of those old movies, I mean, they got these broads that want to be these females, broads, women, chicks, dames, skirts that want to be part of the boys.
Audio's been banned. Max has stepped over this line.
So what happens is they all want to get into this all boys club is what for the most part, and they want to demand, and they end up making coffee. It's just hilarious to me. My wife and I crack up every time we watch these movies. But she goes why did they bring her along? Well, somebody's got to make coffee, wash dishes, and make sandwiches and stuff. All right.
Jeez. You're getting a dangerous area.
And how are you going to have
all the
how are you going to get
listeners?
That?
Max is a really nice guy, and he treats his.
I'm a really nice guy.
He's just
That's my wife.
To put you back in time for a little bit.
No, but when you look at that, and now that you've heard me say that, the next time you watch one of these movies, you're going to go, damn, that's exactly what's going on.
He's making coffee.
He's making coffee.
It's funny you mentioned that because this is just coming up just from this. But Howard Hawks, one of his tropes was he always had very tough talking women in his movies that were much like the guys. He's got Lauren Bacall in The Big Sleep. There's a woman in the original Thing that keeps up with the guy. She's not like, I'm just making coffee and I'm a pretty face. And so it's kind of funny that the reverse version of the Thing, when they take it around, it's just strictly a man's picture of what I always kind of liked about the movie is like the actors in it are all men. It's not like teenagers or pretty boys and stuff like that. It's all
there's no curly-haired men. There's no curly-haired men in any of those. Yeah,
right.
But there's so many
and there's no love story
in that movie.
There's no love story.
Right, and I think he mentions that in there. He mentions that in the article. He goes,
Correct.
"I don't have time for a love story. We need to get to the meat of the story, and we don't want these sort of shoehorned in love scenes when that some pitchers want in these movies."
Right, and that's what happens with so many movies, is they do get that. I mean, we saw it in tons of those old 50s movies. Superhero movies. They throw that in there, and it doesn't really add to the story too much. And so you take it out, and the approach that they took was a little bit different right from the beginning, because it starts off with the dog running. You don't know that there's been, they don't say, it isn't like, hey, there's, we're watching something crash into the ice over here. Let's go check it out. So that part of it, evolves and doesn't explode until the middle of the movie. And you start, then that's when you get into all this distrust. What's going on? Is it a sickness? Is it ill? And then of course, when the revelation of this transformation into alien, and you can never tell who's who. You know, I think it was a great way of portraying that movie.
Yeah, it's very much along the lines of Invasion of the Body Snatchers, because the thing can take over your
Right.
body and make you, you don't know who's who, and you get paranoid and you're worried about that stuff. The other thing is that they talk about in the article is the special effects, and the guys who were involved in the special effects are Rob
Yes.
Bottin, who did The Howling, which is one of my favorite werewolf movies.
Oh yeah.
And Mike Plug, who helped design the creatures. Mike Plug, if you guys are comic book fans, he drew Werewolf by Night for Marvel Comics. He drew the Ghost Rider for Marvel Comics. He helped create those characters. The Man Thing for Marvel Comics. He drew so many fantastic early Marvel horror heroes back in the early 70s. And they specifically mentioned how cool his designs for the different creatures that the thing turns into in the film were, and how relevant they were to the making of the picture.
The special
in addition to that was Roy Arbogast, who did the mechanicals.
Yeah.
So when they were talking about how, it's like these guys in the special effects, they always want to throw special effects in, and so it's like they'd approach Lancaster with these ideas, and he was like, "How are you going to do this?" He said, "Watch me." They'd be like,
right.
These guys are like,
right?
These guys are like, hold my beer,
Hold my
watch
beer,
this,
yeah.
and
They were fantastic. I mean, for that time, especially, the special effects were ridiculously good. No CGI in that stuff. That was.
They still hold up. They still hold up.
They
If you
still
watch
hold
that
up.
movie, they hold up because it seems real. But the sad thing about this, now that we're here looking back in retrospect, over the years, the film has become a cult favorite and people love it. But back in the day, and they're talking in this article, Lancaster says, "Oh, I think this is going to be a big hit. It's a really great popcorn movie." And he's true. But sadly, a few weeks before this movie opened, another movie opened with an alien, and that alien was friggin' E.T. And
he was cute, not scary.
He was cute, and he was friendly, and he was happy. And this movie, I think Carpenter says it bombed because of E.T. People did not want to see it. They were terrified of it. They didn't get it. And it really, Carpenter was really bummed out that this movie didn't do well back at the time.
and
I'm sure he's happy now.
Truly,
it did well.
It sticks today, though, Rich. I mean, it's still a really good film. People.
Oh yeah, I love it. It's my favorite. I prefer
shame
E.T.
timing
Sure.
like that. Important it is.
Well, and it's interesting because timing is everything. And you talk about E.T. just came out. This movie was released on June 25th, 1982. Another movie that we'll be talking about in a future broadcast, one of these segments, is a little movie that some of you might remember by the name of The Blade Runner.
Yeah,
The Blade Runner with Harrison Ford in that. That movie also came out on June 25th, 1982. So there was a lot of competition for butts in theater seats, and
it was a big
that probably
big summer that year.
Yeah, had something to do with it.
It's interesting too that they mentioned I'm just thinking of it in the article. Lancaster says his next project is he was writing the screenplay for Stephen King's Firestarter, and that John Carpenter at the time was also slated to direct that. Because this movie bombed or whatever, didn't do well, he never wound up directing Firestarter, which is kind of sad. I think he might have done a good job with it. The film didn't wind up doing so well, but you know who was in Firestarter? Drew Barrymore, who was in E.T.
She sure was. Oh man, we got it ripped around.
Yeah, I mean it's a fascinating article. It's really well done. Great movie. Still holds up to this day. I try and watch it at least once a year.
Yeah, it's always nice to go back and reread this for movies that we know. And we, before we started, recording this, we were talking about, about the movie, and we know all of these movies. But it's interesting to see the take, as
later
from these other,
right, yeah.
These other
like I said, like
and
the hope that he thought it was going to be a great movie, and it wound up being a bomb, but it did eventually turn around to become a great movie. Well, gentlemen,
there you go.
If you want, I think we better move on, because I'd rather not spend the rest of this winter tied to this fucking podcast.
Yeah, we got more to do. So is it time to sign off? with our last.
That was a quote from the
You
movie,
said-
by the way. I'm not angry at the podcast or you guys. It's one of my
That's
favorite quotes
true.
in the movie
I,
where
Nair and
the guy's
Kavura,
tied,
we're
he goes,
with
I'd
I
rather
was
not
like,
spend the winter tied to this fucking couch.
I was going to say that being Dr. Durant, please do not hold his opinions against us.
It's only his opinion.
That was a quote from the movie, folks.
All right, so I think it's time to sign off so you can go on to the next adventure, if we will.
I am the foul-mouthed Dr. Durant, also known as Richard Hurley. You can find me on YouTube and on Facebook at drdurantsanctum.com.
I'm Max Overnighter, and you can find me over on the Book of Faces, also known as Facebook. I'm a contributor and stand-up comedian, straight man to these two knuckleheads, mostly on the Facebook group Mego Like, but you'll see me lurking around some of the Batman sites, some of the other toy sites. So don't stop by, say hi.
I'm Lou Malagrana. We are very active in the Mego Like Facebook group and all kinds of fun stuff going on. These guys have been a big part of that, and we're really excited to be able to do these podcasts for all of you. So thank you very much.
StarPod Log.